they have and to provide honest answers and dialogue with you. The number one objective, I think, for us tonight, for you as an audience, would be for you to leave here with good information and to please take advantage of the opportunity to ask your questions. We'll get into how we will go about the process of questions and answers in just a minute. Outside of that, just want you guys to have fun and enjoy it. So, Mr. Bretto, if you want to go ahead and go through the plan for the program, we can get started.
Yep, thank you very much. And to echo what Mr. D just said, thank you for everyone making the time to come out and we're want to welcome you to the another athletic recruitment Zoom, which I hopefully you guys have found to be very beneficial. I know that I've learned a lot from these events. And so also a big thank you to our panelists who have, I can imagine, very demanding schedules, and they've carved out time to be able to share their wisdom and their experience with us. And so thank you very much to the panelists, and I'll allow them to be able to introduce themselves. So I won't go in. I just wanted to say a broad thank you very much because it does mean a lot to the kids and to us personally. A little bit of logistical pieces and outline for the program. So the panel is going to talk through after they introduce themselves. The panel is going to talk through the suggested do's and don'ts that all of the student athletes should be aware of and be thinking about, and just give words of wisdom to be able to share through their experience in the process of recruitment and things of the like. And then that's going to be the first part of the program. Will be an informational aspect and a download for everybody to be able to absorb. And then the second half is going to be more of a town hall style with an opportunity to ask questions directly of our panel. And I just wanted to clarify a point. We had originally thought that that was only going to be permitted for our 11th and 12th graders, but all of our students, including our 9th and 10th graders, are going to be allowed to stay with that. So we were confirmed by SU that that is going to be in compliance. So everyone is allowed to be able to stay for the entirety of the evening. So I know that we have a lot of data to be able to cover and ground to talk. So I just wanted to make sure that we have those logistical pieces, and now I'll throw it back over to Mr. D to walk through the program.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bretto. Um, Another piece that I want to just put out there to you all, we will, in the first half, and I'm sorry if I'm being repetitive, I was reading my notes, ask you to just ask your questions as I'm going through. I'll kind of be leading this through, asking the questions on our end for the first half. But if you have questions that come up as a result of the things that we're talking about, you can post them in the chat room, and then I will ask those questions for you. And as Mr. Bretto said, then in the second half it'll be a little bit different. You'll be able to chime in and unmute and ask your questions that you might have. I don't know, and perhaps Mrs. Coffey can give me the thumbs up or nod. Um, are they even unable to unmute themselves in this first half, or do you have control of that behind the scenes?
People can unmute themselves, but I'll
Okay.
quickly mute you back.
Okay. Yeah. So I have in my notes to ask you to please do not unmute yourselves. We just don't want it to get confusing while we're asking questions. You'll have a lot of time at the end to ask questions. So thank you for that in advance. So that we can get started and get through all these questions, I'm going to ask, if I may, Coach Chamberlain, if you'll kick things off with introducing yourself, give a little bit of background, anything that you want to share.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having us. We're very excited to be here tonight and have the opportunity to speak to all of you. My name is Dawn Chamberlain, and I am the head field hockey coach at Salisbury University, and I've been here for many, many years, and have had the opportunity to work with Mr. D when he was here. So, so that is the connection there, but very excited to be here tonight.
Kwame, you want to jump in?
Sure. I'm Kwame Lloyd, head women's soccer coach here at Salisbury University. When Coach D gave us a ring and said, "Hey, can you be on a Zoom call?" I've been tracking your school for a while now, watching the progress of the girls soccer program. So I'm excited to be here. And anytime Coach D calls, I'll come running.
Awesome. Thanks, Kwame. Nate?
Good evening, everyone. Coach Nate Parsley here, head men's and women's swim coach here at Salisbury. I also help out a little bit with women's softball. So yeah, be able to offer any insight you have on both, I guess, the individual and team sports side.
And Jim.
Hi, glad I could be here tonight. Just got done with practice a little bit ago, so just finished a quick meal at Chick-fil-A here on campus. And this has been a long time for me here, not as long as Don, Coach Chamberlain, but I've been here a long time as well. And I'm the head cross country, indoor and outdoor track and field coach for both men and women.
Thank you, Coach. They're being very, very humble and kind. I won't sell them out. Maybe later I'll sell out Dr. Chamberlain because I have known her a very long time. But these folks really work very, very hard, are very successful. If you follow the Salisbury University Athletics Department, you will see that they have some of the best athletic teams in the country, for sure. So please make sure that you don't hold back. Ask your questions. You're going to get honest answers. These are veteran coaches. They've been around here for a while and they have their experiences. And I know that they were happy to join us so that they could share those insights and perspectives. So to kick things off, I'm going to ask that anyone on the panel just give us some sense of how this gets started for the student athlete on the high school side, perhaps how they start the process of getting on a coach's radar. One of the things I want to tell the audience too, as they said, they're all coaching different sports. And so they all have their own unique style and approach to the recruitment process. So please pay attention to those little nuances as well. Anybody on the committee that wants to jump in and kind of give us a kickstart with how this gets started for the student athletes on the high school side?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and give it a start for you. I think, for all of us, we have to notice you somehow. So whether it's through film, through times, through actually coming and physically seeing you play, we have to have an opportunity to know who you are and learn a little bit about you. So an email, if we haven't seen you and reached out to you, then an email is always a great way to start. And, in that email, it's important to obviously introduce yourself, give your grade, tell a little bit about yourself, and, always include some film or your times so that we know what we're looking at.
Anybody have anything to add to that? Thanks, Coach.
I would just mention the initial contact with the email that there are recruiting profiles out there that you can belong to that will allow you to put your updated highlight video, your academic information, maybe something about you. I would preface by saying these are free. Those are free. They will try to later on in the process probably try to get you to pay, but initially, like there's one called sportsrecruits.com that you can add that link to your email. What I do not suggest to do is that you email through the recruiting software. We want to email directly from you. There should be a link on that, your video, maybe the academic profile, maybe so in your email software.
Does everyone hear Kwame on that? Yeah, Kwame, you were breaking up a little bit. We heard you at the beginning, and then we kind of lost you at the end. I don't know if we have a weak connect where you are. You
I
said
would
that.
just like to add to that, with those recruiting profiles, those are fine for the initial start, but I think many coaches prefer a personal email once the contact gets started because often those aren't checked as frequently, and you may miss some emails. So it's a good start with that, and it's a good way to be able to post some film, but after the initial one, if the coach does reach back out to you, it's probably better to start with a personal email so they can go directly through you.
Um, I also would add we connect a lot with our prospects via social media. And so whether that's Instagram from a prospect following our account, and us being able to check out their profile and see they might post a video of their swim performance, or if someone tags us on Twitter with their latest meet results, that's another way to kind of get on a coach's radar. And I do want to mention, I think, there's a lot about like what steps you need to take when you're initiating this process, but I think I like to always go back to your first priority is to really harness your skill and to start identifying programs that are in alignment with, the sport that you compete in, and then trying to identify schools that you think you can compete for. And so determining a match and a fit in that way is also super helpful and can save you a lot of time, because at the initial parts of the process, there's a lot of schools to look at and a lot of potential opportunities, but not every opportunity is going to be a fit both ways. And so just taking the time to put your best foot forward as well, and do a little bit of research on the program and where you might fit in.
Tony, can you hear me?
10 now, yes. Yep.
The other thing I would say, to add on to that is that we would like to hear from the student or prospective student athlete, not the parents. So the prospective student athlete is trying to create the relationship between the coach and the player, and also to be prepared for after we have seen you play, whether or not in a showcase, for some honest feedback. And your response to that honest feedback will also initiate that relationship.
To piggyback on what Coach Lloyd just stated about parents' role, student athlete role, could you guys share some do's and don'ts? There is a role for the parents and there is a role for the student athlete. We do the same thing with the admissions process and college guidance, explaining to and making sure everyone understands that the college admissions office wants to hear from the student. But are there things that you guys think from your side of the desk when a parent does have a role in asking certain questions? And can you talk a little bit about that, when it's appropriate and what kinds of things you're looking for?
Yeah, I would say first of all, the parent should never email the coach. That should always be a correspondence between the athlete and the coach, not the parents. And if we do get something, I could just speak for myself. If I get a email from a parent, I'm gonna send them an email back and say, please have your daughter contact me. But a lot of coaches will just delete it. So it's really important that, unfortunately for many of you parents that are out there, we're not recruiting you to play. So we want to learn more about them to start. I think the big role for you is when you come on campus for a visit. You should have some questions as well as your son or daughter. And that's when you really have an opportunity to speak. But initially, at least from my perspective, some of them may feel differently. We want to hear from the student athlete themselves.
And I'll piggyback off of Don. I had a parent this year that the student was interested in coming to Salisbury University, but the parent was taking all the initiative on all the contact, all the emails. And it kind of made me wonder, is the student really interested in us and Salisbury University? And do they have the skills and tools to do that? Not only in this relationship that we're trying to build, but in a relationship with a professor, or is a parent always going to be there? No. So, parents, I think if you just got to take a step back, like Dr. Chamberlain, Coach Chamberlain said, your role is that, get them here, ask those questions that you have of the program. A lot of times what I do is I bring the family in and I sit down and we talk for about 40 minutes and kind of lay the groundwork of what Salisbury University is, what our program is about, what our expectations are as a student, as an athlete. And I think that really kind of helps everybody see. But trying to initiate that contact for your child, that's not really the way to go. That's a turn off for me, that maybe this student isn't prepared when they go off to school that they're going to continue to rely on mom and dad to kind of foster the things that really they should be doing as a student to help them as an adult. Because college is really about academics, but I think the thing that I learned, specifically me in college, is how to be independent, how to think independent, how to make decisions. And if you've done your job as a parent, as my parents, I really truly believe they did, uh, help me in those times where, back in the mid 80s, you couldn't get on the cell phone, call mom and dad, or text them a question. It was like, what do I do in this situation? So I think those are some important things as a parent, to let them grow, let them learn, let them experience. And yeah, they're going to make a mistake now and then, sure. But that's also a moment they could grow and learn as well.
I think a
Um,
parent can
Just
also,
to add to that, the recruiting process is all about relationships building. And you have to build a great relationship and see if it's a compatible relationship. So, we want to make sure that you're a good fit. You want to make sure that we're a good fit, and you can't do that if we're not developing a good relationship.
I think the role of the parent can be also to proofread the email.
Kwame, we have another issue with the connect.
Testing, testing.
There
Can
we
you hear
go.
me?
There we go. Yep.
My other thought is that parents could proofread the emails, and then also make sure that encourage your daughter or son to proof the emails themselves, especially if they're writing multiple coaches. I can tell you that I've gotten several emails, even in the last week, where it's Dear Coach Bowers, and Coach Bowers is the head coach at Virginia Wesleyan. So they're sending out their emails for their showcase tournaments that are coming up, but they're not proofreading the emails. So I would encourage the parents to help their daughters, or encourage them to proofread, not to make it this massive email. Each email should be an individual email. It should not be an email to 10 coaches. I just went through the process with my son, who's playing lacrosse at Bryant University, and I have my daughters now going through the process as a junior in high school, the recruiting process. So my advice to her is to make everyone individualistic, why that university is a good fit, based on location, maybe based on the academic fit, based on the soccer program. At the same time, make sure that that coach knows their significance. So my name is not Coach. My last name, either Coach Lloyd or Coach Kwame, but I'm not Coach. When I see Coach, it means to me that I am not significant to you. I don't have value to you.
That's a great point, Kwame. I love that. Um, with regards to making these personal and individual, I'll just say for the parents that this isn't new information for the student athletes if they're working with myself and Mrs. Coffey, because they hear the same thing when they're working with admissions offices. The last thing an admissions office wants to see is how much you want to go to XYZ University and you're sending a message to Salisbury University. Or how much you want to be a student at that school and it's part of your essay and you've got the wrong school in your essay. Please, with regards to the parent role, please listen to what they just said. Parents can proofread these things, but make sure that the student's voice is what shines through. Let them have their voice in this process and make sure that it is the voice of a 17 or 18-year-old, not whatever age the parents are in this situation. Could you guys take a minute just to give some perspective in terms of timeline? Like, what would you recommend that a ninth grade student is doing, a 10th grade student is doing, and then when they start getting into that mode, maybe end of 10th, 11th, et cetera, with regards to their work at school, participation in with clubs or individual training, and then when it comes time to, what's the timeline for reaching out to coaches?
I think this is question is going to vary from sport to sport. What I've seen over the time of being in collegiate athletics, different sports such as soccer or field hockey, they're planning 2 years out. they finished 2025s. They're looking at 2026s. In my sport, it's a little different. Sometimes, student athletes and parents hold back a little bit to see if I could run a faster time or jump a little higher or throw a little farther that senior year before they make that commitment. Um, and now, I think there's a lot of things happening in our sport with Division I and cutting back on the number of participants they could have on a team. The SEC started this in track and field where they only have 10 in cross country for both men and women and 35 in track and field. So that kind of has caused a ripple effect where there's a lot of athletes for a small number of spots. So I think in my sport, track and field, that's going to shift a little bit more towards the model of field hockey and soccer, where you've got to get your name out there and your kind of foot in the door, and that could start your ninth grade year after cross country or a fall soccer season. Send some videos that I've researched your school. I think this might be a very good academic fit for me. I'm interested in participating in your sport, and I'm looking to develop and going with club teams to run or play over the summer, and continue to work in the off season to enhance my prowess on the field or on the court. Or so I think starting early is really important. Maybe that fall, getting into your second semester of your first year, your ninth grade year, and then following that up your sophomore year with more video showing the improvement that you're making. And I always like with our sport sharing how you're doing per meet. Texting back and forth is really nice. The state championships for indoor track and field was last weekend, and so I was receiving texts of updates of how they did and competed and how their performance were, and even if several of them won state championships. So that for me was encouraging that they wanted to share that with me, and that they are very, very interested in our school. So that's track and field. I know the other three have their own ideas of when they would like to be contacted and when that should start.
Yeah, for us, ninth grade year, we want to start learning about you, who you are, seeing some film. If you're at any showcases, we want you to let us know that you're going to be at such and such a showcase. Most of the time, the showcases list the coaches that are going to be there. So if you have an interest in Salisbury, and you see our name on the list, then send us an email, and then we'll probably have an opportunity to see you play. So the earlier, the better. As Coach Jones said, we're well beyond our 25s and we're into 26s and 27s right now. So, we're making the finals on our 26s, or what we will by the end of this year, and then we'll already have a good grip on our 27s. So depending on the sport, we're at least a year and a half out for field hockey. And I know some of the other sports, lacrosse, so forth, very similar time frame. But as Coach Jones alluded to, in Division I, if without getting into all the NCAA rules and so forth, but if a school opted in, then they now have a cap on their roster size. So for field hockey, it was a very significant change because they capped it at 27. So a lot of Division I schools had anywhere from 28 to 32. So that's a lot of student athletes that now don't have a home because they had to let them go. And also they had recruits that they were bringing in that they had to say, no, we can no longer support you. So that's been challenging this year, and I'm sure for the next year it's going to be the same. So the sooner you get yourself out there and seen, the better.
It's the best way to do that, Coach. And let me be specific. I know last time you guys were on, and I think Coach Jones alluded to this just a minute ago. Everybody's got their own particular way about going about doing this as a recruiter. I know that with most of my student athletes that come in and meet with me, one of the things that I ask them to do is to go onto the specific school's website to that team's link and fill out the recruit form. Is that something you guys would say that you look at, or is that something that is not being looked at from where you sit?
Yeah, for us personally, yes, absolutely. It's important that you do that because sometimes that's if we're sending out like an invitation to our prospect clinic or a camp, we're going to use that to send out the link. So I think that's really important. Plus, there's a lot of other information on that that you may not include in an initial email. So it just gives us a little bit more information to go on. And it gives us some contact information for your high school coaches and your club coaches, which is really important for us too.
I think to go off of that, the recruiting process is also a process of you figuring out your best fit. And I think that for a lot of the programs I know, especially at SU, we offer clinics and camps. And so a great way for you to also start figuring out what kind of campus you like and what kind of program you're interested in looking for is to go to some of these camps and clinics to get your feet on campus. Coach Chamberlain talked about, freshman year, and I think that's a great year to start taking some visits and being able to see what's out there.
Anything to add to that, you guys, before I jump to the next question?
I would just say, be, and I think, somebody said this earlier, be diligent in your research about the institutions, but it's okay to start very broadly and it's okay to have a dream school, but you also need to have a backup plan if that dream school doesn't come through. So, but it's okay in ninth grade to maybe have 10 schools on your list, but by the time you get to your junior year, you better have it narrowed down to about four or so, just because, you're never comparing the same thing. So it's apples and oranges, and you want to make sure that you've gotten it down to a good number that's manageable and also realistic. So, if you have four schools left your junior year and there's one that you really, really want to go to, you need to have a couple others that you would be okay with if you don't get to go to that school. Because, again, the old adage, don't put all your eggs in one basket is really true here. You want to make sure there's several that are a good fit. But when I say do your research the school, make sure it has the academic major that you want. Because remember, you're not going to be a professional field hockey player or soccer player or swimmer or, runner. So it's really important that you're going there for the academic piece and that you feel like you can also contribute and play at the school, because the last thing you want to do is go someplace where you're maybe not up to par and then you're going to sit on the bench and not have an opportunity to play. We don't want that, and you don't want that. So we do our best to make sure that that doesn't happen, but you have to be realistic too and make sure you're doing your research. And one of the worst things you can do is come in and in the on campus is be like, or on a Zoom when you're doing the initial Zoom, and it's like, oh, well, how did your season go this year? You should already know that. You should already have all that information in front of you and have researched and know that, Coach Nate just won the women's conference championship for the first time in school history. Those are the kinds of things that you need to make sure that you have right there in front of you. So it does look like you're interested.
Coach, is one of the things that we do in our office. We're among the first to connect with our kids about the whole college process. Myself and Mrs. Coffey, Mr. Bretto, Mrs. Redding, and the coaches. And so you've mentioned ninth grade, you've mentioned 10th grade. I know for me to kind of continue what Coach Chamberlain was just saying, I think it's important, and you guys tell me what you think. I think it's important that the student athlete, as you were saying, Coach, is realistic. And right in our own backyard, we've got Salisbury right, right down the road. They've got Washington College down the road. They can go across the bay. I tell kids to go watch teams play. Go watch Salisbury play Washington College. Go watch and be honest with yourself while you're watching these meets and these competitions. Can I make this team? Will I get to play? When will I get to play? Is that something that you guys, am I on track with that line of thinking?
Yeah, I think as you're beginning this process, coming up with a clear intention of what do you want your experience to look like. And for everybody, that answer might be different, right? Like I could be fine with riding the bench and competing for a national championship because I want to be at the highest level. And that was kind of, I know my experience in choosing a school was like, I'm going to fight to make an impact, but I might not, but I wanted to be at the most competitive program that I could be a part of. Whereas others, and if you know yourself, it's like do you want to go somewhere and start or have the opportunity to start immediately? Or but yeah, I think that setting an intention with what you want your experience to look like will help to get rid of a lot of the noise in narrowing down the schools that you're looking into.
The other thing, just to kind of move things along with other questions, you mentioned, Coach Chamberlain, you mentioned ninth grade, 10th grade. Can you talk a little bit about any of you? Can you talk about the compliance process in terms of when, what it would look like if a student in ninth or 10th grade reached out to you? What are you allowed to do? What are they allowed to do, et cetera? What's the timeline?
Yeah, there's a lot of misinformation out there because D1 and D2 have dates. We don't have anything for contact. So ninth grade, once you've entered the ninth grade, you are now considered a prospective student athlete, and we may talk to you. We may send you information. We can, you can come on campus. We can meet with you on campus. So so you just need to make sure you understand the rules, because they're very, very different. D1 can't have any contact with you until June 15th. So we get letters all the time saying, I know you can't respond because it's not June 15th, but I just wanted to give you this information. So, but we can, and you can come on our campus, you can come to our prospect clinics, all that. Yeah, so it's very, very different. The only thing we can't do is have an official visit before January 1 of your junior year. So, but other than that, there's not a whole lot of restrictions there.
When you said June 15th, can you share what year that would be for a Division I, Division II prospective student athlete?
Yeah, I think that's after they're going into their senior year.
Right. Rising seniors.
Yes.
Okay. Anything to add to
Actually,
that?
Tony, can I add to that a little bit?
Yeah, please.
Just because Jada's going through it, my daughter's going through it right now. So she's been allowed to have contact with Division Ones. I think it was like July something or August 1st where she was able to have contacts going into her junior year. So she's had she's gone through the process. Like right now, she's getting different calls, but it's been, I think it was like August 1 of her sophomore summer going into her junior year because she's a junior right now. So there is a for Division One. Division Two, I'm not sure what the rules are. I think they're very similar. The difference, obviously, between the 1 and 2 is because 1 and 2 is dealing with scholarship opportunities, and where D3 is not dealing with athletic scholarships. So that's a big piece and component. And then there's a dead period. And also, we got to realize, and I know Coach Chamberlain and Coach Nate and Coach Jones were all dealing with the transfer portal. Transfer portal Division One is a lot different than transfer portal D3 because transfer portal D1 has a window. that they have to be done. Like they had to be done by like December, a date in December. Um, and then the next date for them to enter the transfer portal is not until like May. So like anyone who contacts us now who's not already in the transfer portal, we can't have contact with them. So Division One, again, I think it's a lot to do with the lawsuit is setting these transfer portal dates in which the student athletes from Division One school can enter.
Thanks, Juan. Um, it's a lot of information, and I don't know if you guys have any recommendations with regards to that stuff specifically, those rules and being in compliance. Is it advisable just to tell student athletes to go to the NCAA website?
Well, I would say just email the coaches anyway. It doesn't matter. They just can't email you back.
Right.
So you can still email them and get on their radar, but don't, if your dream is to go D1 to a certain school and the coach doesn't email you back, it's probably because they can't at that time. But it doesn't mean that you can't send them information. So it's just not a two-way street until a certain date for Division One and I think maybe some for Division Two. But Division Three, once you're ninth grade, it's pretty open. And then also for Division One, you can go to their camps. And that's a great way to be seen earlier than they're allowed to speak to you.
Good point.
Can I just add on to that with the ID camps that Coach Don was talking about? I want to encourage prospective student athletes to go to ID camps on the campus of the university you're interested in, rather than the ones that are multiple coaches are going to be there. To give you an idea, just a quick example, my daughter got an email from a general ID camp offering all these schools are going to be there, telling us that it was from the Longwood assistant coach and that their field was under repair. So knowing the Longwood coach, I reached out to them and they said they never sent that email. So they will do anything to get you to these multiple school emails. And I said, is your field under repair? And they go, absolutely not. We train on it every day. So these different companies are putting together these ID camps and they'll bring in like their grad assistant or the assistant coach from a big D1 school, and you're excited. Please do your research by contacting the university you're interested in and ask them who they're sending to that camp. Because fortunate enough, I've been in the business for 30 years and I have the direct contact, but they literally lied in a direct email and they made it personal. They had my daughter's name, they had her hometown, and the school that is recruiting her. And when I contacted the coach, the assistant coach is a good friend. He said he never sent the email. He never gave permission for the email. And they're not having the ID, they're not going to the ID camp because their field's under repair. So please be careful and go to the ID camps at the universities that you're interested in.
Thank you for that, Coach Lloyd.
Yeah, I would say just it's very important to look at what you want to get out of the ID camp and who's going to be there. Some of them are very legit. So, there are a lot of them out there that are really good. There's a lot of them out there that they're just trying to make money. So do your research on that and, make sure that the coaches that you want to be seen by are actually going to be there.
We're getting close to that second half of this, and so I wanted to ask a couple of other questions before we do that. This is to get some idea in terms of there've been a few things mentioned. The word film has been mentioned a couple times. I want to ask if I could our field sports coaches and then our individual swim, cross country, track, our time sports. What information, if you're getting a message from a student, do you want a video included in the email? How long, questions that I get, how long should the video be? Should music be with the video? Do I give coach partially my times? What can you tell us what do you really want in that email?
Yeah, I know for us, we want it to be short. So, just a couple minutes. It should be a highlight. Don't send us a whole game film. We barely have enough time to break down our own game film, so we're certainly not going to break down yours. So it's important that you just send us some highlight clips, and we want to be able to see, you know, you showcasing some skill, but also see how you're moving off the ball as well. And it's the less work it is for us, the better. So if you can put a direct link in the email, that is perfect. And make sure the link works and we don't have to get permission. A lot of times when you send a Google link, we have to then send a message back to you, hey, we need permission to see this. So YouTube is always great, but something that we have free access. And then we want to continue to see you develop. So, I've had recruits who send me a new 2-minute highlight, once a week or every time they're at a showcase or anytime they have a great game. So that's okay to continue to send us film like that, as long as it's brief. Um, a lot of coaches don't like skills. They don't want to just see you dribbling a ball in cones or anything like that because there's no context to it. So you may be a great dribbler, but you may be not the speed that we're looking for. So, so there has to be some context to what you're doing as well. And then for our sport, because we have an indoor season and an outdoor season, ask the coaches what they want to see because a lot of coaches do not want to see indoor film. They only want to see outdoor film. So ask, would you like indoor film or would you just like outdoor film? So, and it's okay for you to ask coaches what would they like. Here I'm sending along this film. Please let me know what else you'd like to see. And that's okay for you to do. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Also, from a team sport perspective, there's two things that I would want to say, maybe even three. One is the view. I do not want to see just your daughter play. I don't want a camera that's focused on your daughter. So a lot of times, even today, I watched a highlight video with a parent with their iPhone just focused on the daughter every time she touched the ball. So I have no idea what she did prior. I have no idea where the ball went once she touched it. It was just focused on her. So the higher or the broader the view, so I can see the field and utilize technology, whether or not it's a circle, an arrow to point out where the player is. I'd rather a broader view. Personally, I like music. So some coaches don't want the music on there. I like the music because sometimes it'll be around this time of day where I'm watching it, and it might wake me up and keep me going. Three, the only time I want to see individual skill work is with goalkeepers because I'm not sure about field hockey, but for us, sometimes the goalie doesn't see the ball very much. It doesn't show her agility, doesn't show her footwork, doesn't show her back to goal training. And so for me, I would love to see a goalkeeping training video as well as her game video because a lot of times all I'm seeing is her catch the ball or the ball played to her feet. So if I know that she has the athleticism to get to that upper 90 or the footwork to get to that low post, I want to see that, which I sometimes won't see that in a 25 or 45-minute time at a showcase or in a highlight video. But a highlight video for a goalkeeper should not be her bending down to catch a ball. I can get any third grader to do that. I want to see her making a save that's going to show me that she's going to keep us in the game.
Yeah, I would agree. Goalkeepers are a little different with the skills set. I would also tell you that you don't have to have it professionally made. It's okay to do your own video. Just make sure you're giving a narrow as well as a broad perspective. So you don't have to pay these companies who are asking a lot of money for a little bit of film when you can do it yourself, especially, these young student athletes now are very techy. So get one of your friends to film it for you, and you know how to cut it down and all that, and do what you need to do and put the music to it if you want to. Better to put it to it because the coach can always mute it if they don't want to hear it. So, but you don't have to pay a ton of money to have this done when you're quite capable of doing it. I would say parents, it's probably better for your parents not to do it, particularly if they're using a video camera, because what happens is they get all excited. Next thing you know, we're seeing the sky or the dirt, and we're not seeing the what's going on. So, and make sure you mute it
Yes.
because we hear some things too. So, but yeah, you can do that yourself. You don't have to spend a lot of money to put together a film, a quality film that's going to be useful to us. And now I'll let Coach Jones and Coach Nate tell us a little bit about what they look for, because obviously it's probably a little bit different than what we're looking for as a field athlete, field sport.
Yeah, I can start. Swimming's pretty cut and dry. Times are super important. So just generally speaking, I think this would apply for all of us. Like, we're gonna have to screen you athletically before we start to screen you academically or know the 3,500 million clubs that you're in or the volunteer work. All of that is fine to include, but you want to catch, we always want to lead with your attention getter, right? You probably should learn that in your English class. So I'm a first team all state, whatever. I just got a gold medal in whatever. These are my times. Boom, boom, boom. And then you can, let us know what does your academic profile look like, major, where are you from, stuff like that. But if I'm getting anywhere from 20 to 25 emails a day, if you don't lead with the athletic related stuff, I might not make it to the bottom of the email before I get distracted by one of my 63 athletes. So if you start to write these, like, prioritize, like, you want to get their attention with what you're capable of and what you can bring to their program athletically, and then over time throughout whatever else you're writing, include that other stuff. For us, video maybe matters, maybe doesn't, again, with just time being like a factor and screening a lot of different prospects. If you start with the times, then the video could also be like a secondary email.
And just to follow up with Nate, what he said, the watch doesn't lie, and neither does the yardstick. It's pretty cut and dry in our sports. And don't be offended if you send an email to the coach and they say, as I do sometimes, you're not quite at the level right now where you need to be. Here's our standards. And I send those to the student athletes. If you do meet these standards in the future and these times as a sophomore, junior, even your senior, let's get in touch. So don't be, offended by that. We're trying to give you an idea of where our level is at. Some programs, they'll take anybody that's functioning and has a heartbeat. They just need numbers because their numbers are low. I think with Nate and the job he's done to build that up, and what we've done here in track and field, we don't need numbers. We need quality numbers. And so, sometimes we'll say to you, hey, we might not have a spot right now, this coming year, but in the future we might if you continue to improve at a higher and higher level. A good friend of mine is a coach at George Mason, and talking about Division I and the restraints now, numbers. You got to, going back to talking about tier schools, have that dream school. I want to go to Harvard. I want to go to Yale or Princeton, whatever that may be academically. Have that also athletically, but also have those other ones. I was talking to Andrew over at George Mason, and we were talking about these restrictions at Division I. I said, how's that affecting you? And he said, well, it's amazing. I'm getting a lot more interest in student athletes that I've never received interest from. And it's because of the numbers of being slashed. His conference and his institution is not going that route right now, but he's kind of at a high max of numbers. But he's saying he talked to the state champ from Wisconsin in cross country, and he goes, I would never. And then the student contacted him, and the reason being, that student from Wisconsin thought he was going to go to the University of Wisconsin. He's a state champ from Wisconsin. Well, Wisconsin and the Big Ten restricted their numbers like ACC. Wisconsin doesn't have a spot, and neither does any of the other Big Ten teams. So now he's going from the Big Ten to the CAA, and they don't even have spots. So you got to do your homework early and make sure that you're fitting in that realm and having a kind of a tiered. Yeah, the kid wanted to go to Wisconsin, state school, state champ, but there's not an opportunity there. So again, look at your opportunities and understand. Don't be offended if the coach says right now at this point in time, as a freshman, sophomore, or even a junior, you're not hitting those marks yet. Uh, as you grow and physically develop, I've seen, and I think Don Chamberlain can attest to, we had a heck of a runner here several years ago. And he was a skinny beanpole when he came in. I thought, boy, if this guy would hit the weight room hard and really focus on his technique and work and do that and perfect it, he could be a great athlete. Well, he was, and he still is. 11-time national champ. Went on to run for Germany and was in the Olympics. That was a heck of a story. So don't be discouraged by where you're at right now. Keep working hard because you're going to develop your skills. You're going to mature physically, and down the road, as a sophomore, or junior, you might hit those marks.
Yeah, thank you guys. Just to reiterate a few things that were just said for our audience. These folks have said it kind of in a subtle way, but I'm going to tell you that I've known Coach Chamberlain since I was a grad assistant and would bother the heck out of her by being in her space, taking up part of her office desk. I don't know if she remembers that, but she's been there a while. I won't sell her out, but it's been a few years. I think know who you're talking to, know what success they've had, know where their program is. Do not kid yourself into thinking that, oh, it's just a Division III program. 10 years ago, when you went and looked at Salisbury and you wanted to swim, maybe they were doing what Coach Jones said. They're trying to get numbers. Guess what? Coach Parsley's been there, I think, 4 years. And what did Coach Chamberlain say? They won their first. Coach, what is it? What was the Coach Parsley? What did you guys win this year? Let's hear your thunder.
The NJAC championship on the women's side,
Okay.
the conference.
See how subtle and how humble he is. It's a big deal. He's got great swimmers at that school. Coach Kwame Lloyd's got great players down there. Coach Jones has great runners. Coach Chamberlain, I see her warm up the goalkeepers before a game. There's no way I'm putting on that gear and fielding those shots she's banging at those goalkeepers. It is competitive. Know who you're dealing with. Do your homework. Be prepared. Find your way in this process, but know the programs. Don't just assume, oh, I can play there because it's this. They could probably tell you, and I've had, I think, I don't know who it was, someone there. I know it was the head men's coach. I asked him, I said, hey, I know you said this student athlete couldn't play for you guys. You love his character, but he's not going to be a goalkeeper at Salisbury. He shot me back a message and said, tell him to contact these 3 or 4 coaches. He could probably go there and play. Some coaches will do that for you. Some coaches will, you go to their ID camp. I can't imagine if you go to Coach Lloyd's ID camp that he's not going to say, hey, look, I don't think you can play for us, but I'm happy to help you find a place. Am I right about that, Coach?
Absolutely. I do it all the time, especially again, where I am as a parent right now. So I'm on the other side. So I constantly am helping student athletes or prospective student athletes get to where they need to get. Obviously, I wanted to say one or two things. Yes, with Don Chamberlain is a legend here, and I'm not saying that to kiss her butt, but it's what she does and how she does it here is sustainable, right? And then you have someone like Coach Jones with the way he's runs his teams and having an Olympian on his team, and there hasn't been anyone in my 10 year, I don't know, 10 years, 11 years, 12 years I've been here
13.
that has impacted a program like Nate. And Nate has done it. He's come in at the right time. He brought the right kind of energy. I know I tease him all the time. So I remember the little things about Nate that made him unique. And in his interview process, and it hasn't been a coach who's not utilized social media, energy, culture, whatever you want to call, as well as Nate has done. And a lot has to do is what Salisbury has to offer. We'll tell you, we're a D3 school with D1 athletes. We're looking for that D1 athlete who wants to put academics first, but at the same time wants the resources. And when not, you have Matt Nine, who was the Sports Performance Coach of the Year in 2018. He was actually on ESPN at one point because the LA Rams were looking for him. And he's also the U.S. national team indoor lacrosse, men's lacrosse sports performance coach. So you have some of the best coaches in the country on this staff. Our men's lacrosse, legendary. We we had a legendary coach in Margie Knight. So we have, and then her proteges on our way has been the same thing. So Salisbury University is unique. It's not for everyone. We're looking for the top student athletes that probably could play at another level. Just this year, I know I have two Division I transfers come home that want to come home and play at Salisbury because of what they have to offer and the opportunity they have to contend nationally. And that's what you're going to get here. But I want to encourage everyone who can hear my voice when it comes to the recruiting process, because even at Division I, they are tiered. The higher you go up, the less opportunity, but they are tiered. There are Division I programs still recruiting 2025s. Because again, I'm just going through the process with my daughter. They're still recruiting 25s because of the academic profile of the school. So don't be discouraged.
So thank you, coaches. We're at that point in the program where we are going to ask anyone who is on the call that would like to ask a question. It may be helpful if you're going to do that to put your video on, ask your question, take this opportunity to get some information that hasn't already been shared with you. So please, anybody that's interested in doing that, fire away. I'll pause if there's no question, or you can put it in the chat room. Any brave souls out there? Did we scare you off?
Don't be shy. We love to have questions. Don't be shy. We're happy to answer anything. So mom, dad, son or daughter, go ahead and ask us a question.
Or while you're working up the courage, I'll go ahead. Here we go.
Yeah, I asked a question, Bryce Roberts. Thanks, Mr. D, for putting this on. Thanks, coaches, for being on the panel. Hey, I have a question. My daughter just came off like an ACL injury, right? So she doesn't have film currently to kind of put in front of the coaches. She's returned to play, but she doesn't have that season as a late freshman, early sophomore to put in front of a coach. In that instance, is the recovery type of video or things of that nature, is that something that coaches would like to see, or just intro emails until we get film footage?
She's a soccer player, Kwame.
Got you.
A
So,
really
yeah,
good one.
I would, definitely film the rehab. I mean, especially if they're getting to the point where she's doing agility.
Can't hear you, Juan.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me
I don't know what you did before, but you made some movement and it worked.
now?
Right, there we go.
I'm just trying to get closer to the mic.
There you go.
Obviously, my son went through the same thing as a junior, and we did put some footage together to make sure that people knew where he was in the process. But ultimately, we want to see her play. So when she's able to get to an ID camp, some ID camps will allow you to film her at the ID camp, so you can get some footage. But yes, I would like to see footage of her, maybe her progression and where she is right now, and then obviously what she's allowed to do. I would tell you to do not rush to come back. If she's a freshman, sophomore, take the time to allow herself to come back, because there's so many people here out there that rush to come back and end up injuring either that same knee or the other knee, compensating for the strength and coming back too soon. We had a legendary athletic trainer here named Pat Lamboni, and one of the things he taught me is that you have to put in the work before you come back. And even his protocols were a little bit tougher than most PTs. But I would encourage that parent to make sure that their daughter continues their PT, continues their weight training, but take their time to come back. There's no rush. We'll be here.
All right, thanks, Coach.
There's a question in the chat box. Actually, I noticed this when I was looking at some of the ID clinics, and Kwame, I noticed that there was a men's coach that was going to be at one of these ID clinics, and the clinics were really it looked like it was all women. It was a little confusing to me. I don't know if that's the norm. Maybe the coach is going there to cover. I don't know, but the question is, if your daughter's playing in a showcase, or in this case, it was an ID thing. But if your daughter's playing in the showcase, they're asking, would it be okay to let the women's coach know that she's playing in the showcase, even though they're not going to be there, but the men's coach will be there? And I mean, I have a thought on that, but I'm going to let you respond to that.
No, we don't go to showcases blind. We have a schedule, so
Lean in for us, Kwame.
we have a schedule. I'm sorry, I have a brand new laptop too. I'm not sure what's going on, but we have
Still breaking up. Try to reset. Try to like lean back and lean back in or something. I don't know.
It sounds like you're covering the mic maybe with something like your hand. I don't know.
I have.
There you go.
Yeah, I would not send a schedule to the men's coach. When I go to a showcase, I know exactly where I'm going to be at. And there are showcases and ID camps that have men and women going on at the same time. That coach will not go watch a women player play. I wouldn't.
That's what I thought as well. Ms. Philippon, do you have a question?
I will. Hi, thank you for hosting this. Yes, as you know, Abby plays soccer for Gunston. She's also on a club team. This will be our second showcase this weekend, and it's been very helpful to have you help identify schools based on who's going to be attending, how to draft the email, what to send, the brochure with the players on it. And like in our case, it's all women. So we know that the coaches that are attending are obviously going to be watching the women's team. The other question I have, when you ask for videos, are you wanting to see those from the showcase team along with their the school team as well? Even they might be different seasons.
I'm going to be as transparent as possible because that's what my mentor Don tells me to do. I do not want to see high school. It's not a level that we can recruit from. I want to see you play. I want to see you play at the most competitive level possible. So if your high school is your most competitive level, because not everyone gets a chance, then obviously send that film. But I want to see you play with your most competitive team possible. So I normally, if I see a high school game, I just fast forward through the YouTube until I get to a club game, because to watch you play against someone who doesn't really know the game is not going to be allow me to assess whether or not you can help our team win.
Now I'm gonna say opposite of that. I want to see both because I think you probably play a little bit different in both settings. Because with your high school team, you're more familiar with them and you're probably playing a very standard position that you always play. But in your club program, you may be playing at a variety of positions based on who's there for that particular club showcase. So I want to see both because I get more opportunity to see you play in a variety of positions and with different levels and how you respond to playing with different level athletes around you.
Thank you both. You have any follow-up to that, Sarah? Do you have another question or
No, that makes sense because I know at the showcase they are shuffling around. Like Abby may go in as one position and they have to keep moving them around because of the coaches floating around. So that's very helpful. Thank you.
Also know and realize that we as coaches, when we go to a showcase in that time slot, we might have to see three players play in that time, three separate teams. So if we go in that and we break it up into like 25-minute time slots and your daughter does not play in that time slot, we have to move on. So that's really important that if you have the technology within your club to have someone filming the game and then you can send us a highlight. We're not trying to be insulting. We just have to see a lot of players in a short period of time. So usually sometimes I literally sit down, set a timer, and a lot of times I'll sit down and someone just gets subbed out. I'm like, oh my goodness. But I'll stay for those 25 minutes to see if she gets back in. But sometimes I just got to move on. So having someone who has a video is key.
While we're
Thank
waiting
you.
on, I'm sorry. While we're waiting on anyone else's question, could you guys just give a general day in the life experience for a student athlete? You know, what it might look like. The student athlete who, needs to go into the training room in the morning and then, what their day would look like, and then back in the training room, out to practice, back to, how does that look?
Well, I think it's going to be very different for each of us. Just depending on how we structure our practice. As a student athlete, you're always in your traditional season, you're always going to get one day off a week. You probably have a practice that spans about 2 hours. And, um, you know, I know for both Kwame and I, we would have probably film before or after practice, depending upon what our practice time is. So if you're in athletic training room, you may be an hour in there, probably in the morning, and then a little bit before if you have to get treatments before practice. So you figure roughly, if you're not in athletic training room, I would say probably about 3 hours a day. If you are in athletic training room, it may be a little bit more. So make sure you're fit and you don't get hurt and you don't have to worry about that, right? So, but yeah, it's going to be a little bit different. I mean, Coach Jones, he's out there all day long, with various athletes, because of the nature of his sport. So his is a little bit different, and Nate, I think, probably has at least two practices a day. So I'll let them speak. But I know for me personally, you got to figure about 3 hours a day, including that includes your film and your warm up and cool down period.
Yeah, I would say, one of the misconceptions I think we sometimes come across in general is just that, oh, well, it's only Division three. And I can say that the veracity of which our season runs is very similar. I know on the swim side, like we have 3 hours of lift per week, and then on 3 days a week, they're training for an hour in the morning in the pool, and then an additional 2 hours in the afternoon. So 18 hours of swimming a week, plus travel, competitions, meals. So I think it's important just to note that it's a lifestyle. Being a student athlete, it's not something that you can dip your toe in and out of. And even when we're out of season, and I know ours is a little bit different than maybe field hockey and soccer in terms of what we're capable or how many days that we use in the off season, but it is pretty much a year-round commitment. You have volunteer service activities, team planning events, stuff within just the general athletics department. And so if it is something you're interested in, it is important to just be aware that regardless of the division you compete, it's kind of like a full-time commitment, whether you're in or out of season.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, it has to be a priority, and you have to be able to balance that priority with the priority of your academics. So, you know, when you go to school, as a student athlete at Salisbury, or any high level program, those are going to be your two priorities, and that social aspect of college has to take a back seat to them. So you've got to understand that, you know, it's not just Division three, as Coach Nate just said. It is a commitment, and it is a year-long commitment, because you can't take time off in the summer and expect, if you're a fall athlete, to be in shape when you come back. So you've got to train all summer long. And if you're not getting better every year, then somebody's going to bump you out. So, you've got to be willing to make that commitment and be the best version of yourself every time you step out there.
I'll kind of follow up. Nate and I are very similar sports, and just what Don said. there's always somebody out there better than you. And, our team has grown to a point where we sometimes can't travel everybody. We've got 80 student athletes, and a lot of times we're taking a 56 passenger bus. So do the math. If you're not, and I always tell the students, you're only as good as your last race or your last throw, or your last jump. Four things that I tell recruits that we want. And number one is we want somebody that's a hard worker. And Don just alluded to that about the training room. That's kind of a joke, but if you work hard, you're going to outbeat the talented kid a lot of times. But if you work hard, you're going to stay healthy. And when you're healthy, then you can make some good progressions and be out there in the field or in the pool or wherever you need to be. So, work hard in the classroom. Sometimes that's a concern for us too. You kind of get the social aspects in, and it kind of sways as a new student athlete. You're in a new environment. You want to make friends, and all of a sudden that takes priority over athletics and your academics, and then you're not any asset to either one. You're struggling academically to keep up, and you're so worried about that hey, who cares about athletics? I gotta keep my head above water to keep my academic scholarship and so on and so forth. So work hard. That's one thing. I think number two is you got to be dedicated and disciplined. And as Coach Chamberlain, and I think all the other coaches will agree, it's just not showing up the first day of practice and saying, "Coach, get me in shape now. I'm ready to get in shape." In college, we expect you to be in shape. Matt Nine, as Kwame mentioned, outstanding coach. He will send you workouts to do and lifting and different styles of workouts. If you follow that program, and a lot of schools do this, you're going to be in shape that first day of practice, ready to go. You'll be healthy. The aches and pains of those first couple of weeks of training will not be a burden to you. But if you don't, if you're not dedicated and disciplined, you're going to really find yourself probably riding the bench or missing the bus in our case. The third thing I want to mention is being a competitor. If you're getting set on the bench or you're not making that bus, what are you going to do? Are you going to go to mom and dad and cry and have them call coach or email coach? Because we really won't. We'll just ignore that. We want to see how you respond in a tough situation as a competitor. So, rise up. I'm going to work a little harder. I'm going to, get to bed a little bit earlier. I'm going to take that social aspect and push it aside and really kind of dial in. And we've got some freshmen right now, were spectacular at the conference meet last weekend. And then other freshmen didn't even make the bus because they're kind of involved in, their focus is in other areas. And then the fourth thing is just really loyalty. You've got to be loyal to your coach who's recruiting you and is rely on you to perform at a level that they thought you could, or even higher now that you're competing against higher level people. So, loyalty to your coach, but loyalty to your team in the season and off the season. I always tell our team, you win or lose in the off season, and you win and lose as an individual athlete in and out of the season too. If you're not prepared in college, no matter what level it is, and I think swimming, track and field, I know field hockey, soccer, men's lacrosse, they've played Duke before and beat Duke. So, this is not, high school, one step above high school. This is a strong, strong program collegiately. We can't go to Maryland anymore. Back in 2010, they invited us over. We won an invitational. They won't invite us back. So, you've got to really kind of, those four things: hard work, you got to be dedicated, you got to be a competitor, and you got to be loyal.
Thank you, coaches. We're into the very last piece here. I want to ask if one of you guys can be very concise. I want to ask a kind of a three-part, but a concise response to something academic related. And I know, again, coaches are going to have a different approach to this, but wondering about the academic support options that you see, you implement yourselves. I know some coaches have mandatory study halls. Some, have a different approach to this. They get grade reports, etc. The second part of that question, are there any academic majors that either make it impossible to be a student athlete or very difficult? And then the third would be, how do student athletes communicate their athletic schedules to faculty on a college campus? How do they let them know or talk with them about, hey, this is what our season schedule looks like. I would appreciate the opportunity to be absent and make up work, et cetera. How does that work for you guys? What do you know? What can you share with us?
I can take this, but you're gonna have to walk me back through the questions one by one.
Sure. Academic support. So, like, do you have mandatory study halls? Do you have a way of checking on your student athletes to make sure that they're getting the job done in the classroom?
Yeah, so I think that every program is going to function a little bit differently. I know for us, we are a resource to help, bridge the gap between what we have within athletics to what the university offers to all of our students. Um, and depending on your willingness to be vulnerable and come and ask for help, I think that we're certainly willing to help. With the volume of student athletes on our team, we can't possibly track and monitor 62 on top of everything else. So the onus definitely falls on them to kind of come to us and initiate. I know it's pretty standard and something that we do. First year student athletes for the fall have to track study hours, and as long as their GPA clears a certain threshold, they fall off of that list and don't have to track. If they fall into trouble, then they do have to track. We have some that have in-person hours that they have to report for. So there's, yeah, a variety of things. I think that if you asked any of us here, we all run different systems.
How about the academic majors? Are there any majors that you guys feel make it impossible to be a student athlete, or that just make it very, very difficult?
Well, I would say if the student athlete is a true student athlete and they're very responsible and dedicated to both the athletic piece and the academic piece, then and they're respectful to their professors, then we really don't have anything that is going to be off the table. Even nursing is an option for them, which most other institutions don't allow that. So, are there some that are more challenging? Yes, absolutely. But there's nothing that's off the table. But the key is, the first day in class or that first week in class, you need to introduce yourself to the professor and let them know I'm a student athlete. If it's in the fall, there is a potential where I may have to miss your class. What do I need to do to make that up? And if you're taking that initiative and being respectful and of their thing, then they're gonna help you out most of the time. So so I think it's all about that level of respect and being responsible and not coming in on a Monday morning and say, "Oh yeah, I wasn't here on Friday. Sorry, I missed that quiz. Can I make it up?" You're not going to get anywhere with that. So you've got to be a responsible student. You got to be respectful because, field hockey or track or swimming or soccer may be your passion, but history is their passion. And, you need to make sure you're respectful of that. And, as long as you're doing that, then we usually don't have any real issues.
Right. So Coach Chamberlain answered two of the three in one response. Thank you. To be respectful of everyone's time, I'm going to say my thank yous. We're done with the Q&A. Really, really grateful to Coach Parsley, Coach Lloyd, Coach Jones, Coach Chamberlain. You guys are awesome. I am a proud Seagull. Good luck the rest of the way. I'm going to turn it over to Coach Bretto, let him say a few things, but sincerely, thank you guys so, so much. I know you're busy. We know you're busy.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, I just wanted to conclude the program by saying thank you guys again, echoing exactly what Coach T just said. Being able to have the sources shepherd our families and our student athletes through what can be a very daunting process and exciting, but definitely very daunting process is invaluable. So we really appreciate you guys taking 90 minutes of your time to share with us and share wisdom with us. It means a lot to us. For the families and student athletes, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Miss Redding and myself like to work very closely with Mrs. Coffey and Mr. D about supporting you in any way. We can only take you so far. The rest is up to you. But as far as we can take you, we want to be able to take you there because I think we all take great pride in any conference championships and any individual accolades. But what I know, I can speak for the group and say that I take the most pride in is when you guys get a chance to and an opportunity to compete at the next level. So avail yourself to all these words of wisdoms that the coaches have shared, and please feel free to reach out so that we can help you and support you. With that being said, I just wanted to conclude the evening. Thank you guys again for taking your time out, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their week.
Thank you,
Thank you
everybody.
all.
Have a